Hi, my name is Cassandra Cardenas. So Chapter 3 of this textbook discussed standardized testing on preschool age children and school age children, and how in preschool they are more focused on, are these children meeting the developmental milestones? Language skills, motor skills, those types of aspects of a child's life is what they are mostly looking for, and especially its important role in how these initial assessments can lead to diagnostic assessments, which could help an early intervention for a developmental disorder such as autism. And it also discusses how for school-age children that they focus on achievements and aptitude and their ability to learn and retain the information, and then their mastery of the skill that they learned or the lesson that they've learned. And that these also can lead to a diagnostic assessment, especially of learning disabilities like dyslexia. And so I found that very interesting to learn about because as a psychology major, I know about the developmental stages that a child goes through and the milestones that need to or should normally be achieved throughout each stage as they progress through their early childhood. But I had never thought about the application of it in the school setting and how those milestones are observed and assessed in a school setting. I had never thought of it before, but I found it very interesting to connect it to my developmental psychology courses that I've taken and those stages that the children go through. I also found it interesting to learn more about validity and reliability, and how these standardized tests are written and how the different steps that they need to go through to make sure that it is as valid and as reliable as possible, and the different trials that they have to do with different samples before they can even send out the standardized testing to the school. I found that very interesting to learn about and see the application of validity and reliability. That's something that, as a psychology major, this textbook has been used in all of my research methods courses, and it discusses these two terms. And when we write research studies, we have to make sure that our questions and our surveys and questionnaires are measuring what we want them to measure. We want to make sure that they're valid. You don't want to be doing a study on a mood disorder and asking questions about anxiety. You want to make sure that your survey is measuring what it needs to be measuring. And that applies for school too. You want to make sure that if you're giving a child a math test, that you're not measuring their motor skills. You want to make sure that they're measuring math skills. And same with reliability. You want to make sure that those results are consistent so that there's a very small standard error of measurement, so that the smaller the standard error of measurement, the more reliable it is, and the more likely it is that you can say that those results can be generalized to not just the sample, but the population, which is something that in psychology we discuss that too. You want to make sure that your results can be applied to the general population, not just the sample size that you studied. So I found that very interesting to learn about and connect to that. And I think that this chapter on standardized testing expanded my thinking of assessments. I knew about the developmental stages, but I had never thought about how school teachers and in a school setting that how these kids can be assessed. I always thought of it as something that psychologists do or parents do. I had never seen the application in a school setting, so I found it very interesting to kind of see, and it definitely expanded my thinking of how important these assessments are in school, to not just see how well a student has mastered a certain skill in math or reading, but also in language development and motor skills, to be able to make sure that they are not just learning well, but developing well. One thing that still challenges me, or that I still have some questions about, is how these objectives for the standardized test are created. The textbook discusses how in the test manual, they have to state the purpose of the test and the objectives that the following questions are going to examine. How do they decide what is an objective? How do you know at what grade level, what task or what ability a child should have in the general population? How do you test that? How do you make sure that your findings are consistent across the board? So that's what I would like to learn more about.